Again, I'd like to call to order the workshop of the Charlotte County Airport Authority to go over a whole bunch of stuff, we think, and get educated. I guess maybe you can call this the Jim and Rob show, I don't know. Anyway, I'd like to get started, and Mr. Hurston, if you would lead us in invocation.
Yes, sir. Gladly. Shall we pray? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we take this time to praise your holy name, and we give you the honor and the glory for all the happenings here at the airport. We thank you especially for the hedge of protection that you provide for us financially, for our commercial carriers, our general aviation, and all our properties. And we ask now that you grant this board wisdom, guidance, discernment, increased IQ to conduct our workshop. And we ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Paul, would you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I guess we need, please turn off your cell phones. I guess we should have a roll call.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Mr. Andrews?
Here.
Mr. Hackett?
Here.
Mr. Hanzik?
Here.
Mr. Parrish?
Here, and I just want to note, I just got a note from Vanessa. She is running a few minutes late.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hurston?
Present.
Mrs. Coppola? Present. Thank you.
Okay. Like I say, this is an open discussion among the authority members, and we'll probably have an opportunity for people to chime in at a later time. But at this point, anyone that wishes to address the board on issues or what we're going to be looking at, basically we're looking at all the projects and work that's going on to have an understanding of what we're doing, where we're going, where we are financially, what we anticipate occurring in the very near future. So with that, anyone who want to come up now and provide us some wisdom?
No wisdom.
No wisdom. Okay, well, let's get started, and I'll turn it over to James. And you're all aware of the fact that we publish on a monthly basis a document that's called Project Development Update, and usually this is always on the internet, and we do address it briefly at each of our board meetings, but we thought it would be good to go in depth so everybody understands what we're doing, what's going on, where the money's coming from, and kind of tie it all together in an effort to educate not only ourselves as board members on what's going on, but the general public. So, Jim, you want to start? And,
sure.
We'll go from there.
We're going to go basically in the same order as the document that you get every month. Just for simplicity purposes, there will be a few things that are thrown in that are already done and aren't on the document, just so you understand how those are being tied into what's happening now. So the first thing is the commercial terminal expansion. Go ahead to the next slide, if it works. So everything you're going to see, we kind of give you a layout of where it is on the ALP, so the commercial terminal. I hope everyone knows where it is. Next slide. We did a study last year, kind of to progress the design criteria for what we need so we can justify it with the FAA. There is money available through the bipartisan infrastructure law for terminals that's generally not available. It's separated into small hub, large hub, and medium hub chunks, and we're trying to get our fair share of the small hub. So we need to do the study first to justify it. So we did that last year. Next slide. And we looked at multiple alternatives. The one that kind of floated to the top was 1B. I think you guys have seen most of this. What's outlined in red is the existing terminal. What you see on the left is some additional baggage claim area, and on the right is the baggage screening that is a separate project that is currently under design and will be bidding soon. And then you'll notice the majority of the construction is out on the ramp, creating a 12-gate linear concourse that we'll actually build in phases. So we'll start with the number of gates needed, and then we can just continue expanding out in the future.
Now, does that push the parking positions?
Pushes the parking
back?
positions back.
So then you're going to be involved in the taxiway issue too?
It doesn't
No? Oh, it doesn't
affect the taxiway. The only thing it really affects is the tail heights is what's the important part, and we're good there. So the total project is estimated at about $40 million. We are asking $15 million from the FAA. We're actually asking for more, but we hope to get at least $15 million. We have $15 million in PFC in our application, and we are working with the DOT for a $10 million grant.
That's FDOT.
FDOT, yes. So this will obviously expand queuing, it'll expand our checkpoint, give us a little more concessions and restrooms, expand circulation between gates, and give an overall better experience for the customer. We are at our planning level 4, I believe, currently. We planned on getting there, I think, somewhere about 2032, so we're a little ahead of schedule. But I think as we're seeing across the country, but specifically in Florida, we peaked during COVID, and now we're plateauing. And my big fear is we build something. Some of our friends in the airport industry are now undertaking huge projects. If the airline industry does what it typically does, it's going to start cutting back. Out of Florida, we're a low revenue, low yield state, a vacation state. They're going to put their planes back in high yield commercial business traffic. So we will see how it continues. Fortunately, we're a 100% leisure travel market, so we may not be affected by it, but I don't want to build too much, and that's been our policy all along. Try and fit as much into the terminal as you can, and then incrementally add.
Yeah, to expand on Jim's comments, number one, just to give you an example, I'm originally from Missouri, and Kansas City just opened the new terminal this week. $1.5 billion is what they're, and Orlando's what, $2 billion?
$2 billion, and that. So here's the fear that I have. Their goal was to open that building, and it was to open during COVID. Obviously, I planned way before COVID, and it was going to be at 100% capacity the day it opened, and they have yet to start really utilizing it. So.
But times have changed. Back in my era, you were talking millions of dollars in airport improvements and terminals. Now that everybody's talking billions, so it's a very expensive deal.
You just move 1 0.
Yeah. And, the other thing that we probably should address now, because I know as board members you're probably going to be asked, okay, you're expanding that terminal building, now where are the jetways, the loading bridges? No, go ahead.
They're not there.
I know they're not there.
And like I've said before, every one of those gates that sits in front of an aircraft could be modified to have a jet bridge, just like they do at St. Pete. They have 2 jet bridges. I think there are 14 gates now, and they modified 2 ground boarding positions. My concern is, like St. Pete, they built those and they sat unused for 5 years because the airlines don't want to pay to use a jet bridge unless they have to, because it's the only gate available. So I've always told Southwest that if you tell me you're coming with 8 flights a day and need a jet bridge, we'll put in a jet bridge.
You know, jet bridges they're what, about $1.2 million at least each?
Yeah, $1.2 million plus HVAC plus shore power for the planes. It's a major investment, and they last about 10 years now.
Yeah. And historically, Allegiant doesn't like to use them because they don't, for the big reason they don't want to pay and increase their cost at an airport, which means translates into higher fees and all that kind of stuff. So it all fits together.
It also eliminates dual boarding. They board from the front and the back. Southwest or Sun Country boards from the front and the back, so it speeds things up. Sure.
On the terminal, on the right side, looks like the old cafe restaurant's going to go away.
Oh, yeah, that'll go away during the baggage screening project.
And as well, it goes into where the hangar is. What's the planned use for that area?
So the first phase of the outbound baggage screening area does not go into the hangar. We are only building one carousel, so the second carousel will be in the future when it's needed, and that would mean the hangar has to come down.
Can you talk us through like the different phases? What would be phase 1? What would be phase 2?
Do we have, let's go to the next slide. So phase 1 is not included in what we're talking about because it's already in progress. That is the outbound baggage screening area. That's a TSA project to automate baggage screening. Phase 2 would be relocating the parking positions and then making some modifications to the ramp to allow for the new construction to take place. We have some drainage improvements that would take place. Phase 4 would be to start the construction of the linear concourse. Phase 4 construction. We'd build six gates, maybe more, depending on the need. And then phase 5, the next slide, would be to renovate the interior of the terminal. And then we would, the existing terminal, which means relocation of the TSA checkpoint, some modifications in the queuing area, in the ticketing area, as well as the exit lane going into baggage claim. And then we would move on to frontage road improvements, which moves the exit to the airport from between the rental car center. So there's no longer, what that'll ultimately do is keep the rental cars from coming in front of the terminal when they have to bring them back. And then phase 7, go back. Phase 7 and 8, which aren't really part of this, but just is to expand baggage claim and then expand rental cars.
Jim, I do have a quick question. That first slide that we had an NFPA, I think 100-foot setback. What is that? I'm not sure if it was 100 feet or not.
Go back one more.
Yeah, see it?
Yep.
It's from the corners of the building, actually. Is that 100 feet? Yeah, it is.
It's a setback from the face of the building to the fueling point of the aircraft.
Okay.
If you're less than that, you have to have a deluge system on the building.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yep.
This one's a little crowded, so we'll go to the next slide. That's all PFC application 4 and the amendment for 2. It's basically amending the application that we submitted a few years ago to true it up to actual cost, you have to do it once you're done with projects. And then 4 adds the removal of golf course and the extension of Challenger, perimeter road improvements, terminal expansion, which we just talked about, curbside improvements, the rehabilitation of taxiway Alpha and Charlie, the inline baggage system, and 422, some modifications of some things that were not on the original and then administrative costs. So kind of an overview. This is the things that are in development, the PFC app. I think the board approved at the last meeting and the meeting before, so we're just in progress on that. Next slide. Anything specific you want to talk about? The cost to us is $85,000 for the application from our consultant, and then that's 100% refunded through the PFC. The PFC, just so everyone knows, is the $4.50 that we charge, that we're allowed to charge on each ticket, outbound ticket, and we get about $4.25 from the airlines after they process it back. And that pays our share of about 90% of the eligible projects. So that becomes our money to use on things the FAA allows us to use it on. Long way of saying the FAA still has control of the money. So the north side infrastructure development, next slide, is obviously on the north side next to the new GA facility. Next slide. We did some planning to kind of maximize the utilization of that area, keeping in mind that we may need some more ramp. There's apron expansion in front of the air center, but we're getting a lot of interest in individual hangar construction. So we wanted to make sure we didn't do anything stupid, which sometimes happens at airports. Note are some of our old buildings. So we had AECOM do a layout that maximized the use and gave us some ways to phase things in. It still allows for an MRO if one ever comes, but the majority of our requests are for 100 by 100, 100 by 120 buildings, and then some slightly larger. So we're currently building Taxiway Gulf. We're currently out for design on that. So that's the entrance that everyone will use to get to this area. But next slide shows the infrastructure that we need to build. So we need to get a road in to access that area. As you'll recall, in the last board meeting, we approved a lease for Harborside Aviation. We'll need to build the entrance road for them. We're going to take it all the way down. That'll give 3 to 4 more sites, depending on what goes in that larger building at the end.
A couple of questions.
Sure.
It's been the replacement of 207, the 60 by 60s along the on your drawing, which is on the left side, those orange buildings. There's a concern on how those hangar tenants are going to, one, get to the hangar, and two, if they pull their airplane out of the hangar, they're going to be in a taxiway.
Taxi lane, just like any T hangar.
So it's not going, by pulling the airplane out, and say they're sitting there and they're washing it or whatever they're doing.
You're not allowed to wash airplanes on the ramp. So.
I understand that, but you know it happens. But it's not going to interfere with the taxiway if an airplane's sitting out there.
We'll just have to, that's why that's a loop. So they'll have to come in. Just like on the T hangars, you just go around the other side to come in.
And how do the guys that are going to be in those hangars, how are they going to get to the hangar?
Just like you get to the T hangars, you'll drive through a gate. For the storage, for the commercial ones, there's parking provided for their customers.
Yeah, they come in that north road?
Yes.
Through that gate, and they'll access. Okay, I got it. And then I asked a question at the last meeting, what's our percentage usage or capacity of our existing apron, because it looks like, if you do all this stuff on the right, you're going to limit future apron expansion if you need it.
We can more than double the current apron in those 2 areas that are shown that aren't built.
Because when I look at it out there from time to time, it seems like that ramp is just full. We
make it look that way.
Do we track number of aircrafts overnight by size and all that kind of good
We
stuff?
track it by the engine size, the dual twins and jets and singles.
Jim, did you say parking was based on retail?
Not retail, but business.
Business.
So aviation, av shops.
Okay. Don't forget some discharge, some runoff is allowed to go into the Challenger Boulevard Swift Mud permit.
We will keep that in mind.
Yeah. In
Well,
case you get in trouble.
maybe we should put in a wash rack. You guys, I'm sure somebody's thought about it.
So yes, for years. And Florida has some really weird rules
Yeah, I
about
know.
wash racks. We had an unofficial wash rack that the Department of Health shut down. I designed one years ago for FedEx in Jacksonville, and it was literally never built because of the cost. Any other questions on?
So this yellow area on the drawing, that road is going to be put in to access future hangar
Yes.
sites.
Yeah. So obviously the stuff on the left, we can build right away once we put that road in. Anything on the right would require taxiway access, and we'd have to build those taxiways first. So that's longer term. But, so right now, if you just go across the front, the yellow building is the air center. The first building is our proposed hangar to support the air center. The second building, we are currently in negotiations with a potential tenant. The third and the fourth, we're in final negotiations on a lease for that. The fifth building is CTC. The sixth building is currently leased. The land is leased by Harborside. And then the two going south we're also dealing with another potential tenant on those two.
So basically, you got to have the road to affect the lease for those hangars.
Yes.
Jim, all utilities come in off Challenger?
We'll be bringing utilities off of Challenger. We got a CDBG grant years ago to put in water and sewer, so we'll be tying into that.
Sure.
And then looping it from the air center around.
What do you mean looping it around?
Well, we already have an 8-inch line running down, so that'll tie in and tie back onto Challenger. The water.
And what we're seeing is basically funded.
This is all, the road will be us. It's just part of the
And of course,
development.
and the hangars, with the exception of our own, are going to be funded by.
They're just land leases.
Yeah. Okay.
And next project, airfield lighting control system. So this is its location. It's in the vault and in the tower. We put this in after Hurricane Charlie. Go to the next slide. It is state-of-the-art 2005. It actually, the system we had prior was switches. You literally flipped them on and off. This was touchscreen. We thought this was the best thing in the world when it came. It is very old. It's been upgraded internally twice. It is now obsolete. We can't find parts. If you've noticed, the airfield lighting has been on high for the last month. It's fixed now. We found a part on eBay, literally, and bought it to fix the system. They are not commercially available anymore. So this is out to bid right now. Should be opening the 24th. So, and we will, we'll award that contract at the next meeting. This was part of the 422 project that the FAA asked us to pull out and bid separately.
Jim, you said that's in this, we're looking at the tower right now?
We are looking at the vault right
the
now.
vault.
There is a identical monitor in the tower that they hit, they turn on the taxiways, they turn on everything. So when they're in the tower, it's not pilot controlled. As soon as they flip a switch, the pilot then can key on with his mic to turn up from low to medium to high intensity.
What operating system is our up to speed 2005
I
technology?
believe this is running on Windows
This one's FT2.
XP,
XP.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, but that's not the issue. The computer's fine. It's the controls. If we opened this and showed you the back, it's just a bunch of switches and logic boards, and those are the parts that we just can't get anymore. The old ones were great because they were literally just a switch, and they lasted forever, but obviously no one wants to hit 30 switches. All right, any more questions on that? So West Side development, we just started looking at this. Next slide. It is basically, we wanted to look at what we can do with the old boneyard, the old rental car QTA facility, the old maintenance facility, once that is all moved. And so we had AECOM look at a couple of layouts. Wanted to make sure we address the fact that we do have a design to expand parking. So that's what you see on the left. I believe some of that is built already. No, none of that is. It's further up. Okay. I think they're wrong, but that's okay. Some of it could, because we have that swale in there, and we kind of stair-stepped it up. So some of that is currently there, but we do have the ability and the plans to expand that. And then we wanted to look at the potential of a storage facility for the airlines. They have talked to us about the need for
Junkyard.
well, a place to put their rotables, their commissary, all their maintenance. We've been upgraded to a larger maintenance base. They're leasing some, we understand they're leasing some off-site space right now, but ultimately, Allegiant wants to build something on the airport, so we're kind of thinking this is the area for that, for their GSE maintenance, as well as the potential, and I don't see the need, but the potential to put a few more hangars down here. My goal would be to push most of the hangar development up north. So this maintains CAP. It fills in that pond that we permitted to be filled in a while back. It's no longer needed.
Jim, is that other surface waters? Is that what that is, the pond?
It is a retention pond that was built for the South Apron. It is the impetus for the statewide stormwater program. The pond is twice the size of the apron. The DOT and the FDOT and the FAA had a fit when they saw it, but those were the guidelines. We did the statewide stormwater program to prove that we didn't need that much for airside.
And these two features are wetlands that we're going to fill?
This isn't a wetland. That's just an overgrown tree area that's no longer there. The Brazilian peppers, and the other is the pond and the littoral zone for the pond that we have permitted to fill.
And it has a discharge point?
It goes through an existing swale and across the parking lot. That's that swale that's already there.
Okay, it must be this.
Yes.
Through there.
Yeah. It's been relocated, but that is it.
So that'll become a developable, what, 10, 15 acres?
It will
We're looking
be.
at?
And we've looked at putting some things in there. It could be. I think it's going to be an aviation use, but non-airside aviation use
Nice.
in the future.
It's a nice piece of property.
West side, up on the north end, where you guys have been doing some clearing, the old dump. I guess it's a dump.
It's on Challenger.
On the north? Not on this.
No,
yeah.
on the north side.
Yes.
You're talking west side, so I'm saying
So we
west
haven't
side
been
north.
we haven't been clearing. We've been filling some depressions that formed over time.
Is that buildable?
No,
I didn't think so.
no. But it wasn't mowable the way
Yeah.
it had ended up. So we filled those depressions, and I think now we can get in there and maintain it a little better.
Maybe that can be recycled, James.
where all the
There's
dead
some mining
bodies are.
companies out there that'll recycle those old things.
I don't like digging into it. I don't like being near it. We've hit it twice. We hit it with the outbound swale for the air center, and we hit it when we built the 5 T hangars that are up there. And we applied to move off-site, and they wouldn't allow it. So that's what that berm is. We moved it, bermed it, and capped it.
We saw indications of it when Challenger was built.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's very little data on the extent of that. We've researched at the county. This was long before the airport authority existed. It's just one of those things you don't want to dig into. All right, new FBO hangar. It's next to the FBO. Next slide. So we are past design. We're currently negotiating fees. I'm really hoping that prices start coming down. I just saw today that new mortgage requests are down 115%. So if that continues, construction will slow, and then maybe prices will start to normalize. We have asked the people that are building for one of our current tenants at one of the sites I said we're negotiating on, gave him the plans. Their company is pricing it. Preliminary results are it's significantly less than the people we're contracted with. So I'm going to have to figure out how we could move that contract to another party.
The other party, do they have hangar experience?
Yes, significant hangar experience at Sarasota.
Okay.
But that's the building that we designed. There's some value engineering that we're looking at. I don't like mechanicals on the roof, so we'll probably be moving those ACs that you kind of see in the middle on the ground, getting rid of that parapet. Flat roofs on metal buildings are terrible, so we'll VE that out. But that's what we designed. Next slide shows you the location of it. It is just across from the FBO, across from the new Rosati's. Next slide gives you an idea of the hangars, the hangar space, and then the firewall. There's a few offices inside of it and bathrooms. Most of it opens towards the hangar. One of the issues we're having is there's not enough flow for the fire, so we had to put in a fire pump, and you got to either have a generator or a diesel-powered fire pump, and we're looking at $500,000 in just the fire pump. So we're looking at a combined generator for the FBO and for this building that would let us go back to an electric fire pump. Next slide. Inline baggage system. Any questions on that? Our estimated cost on that was $1.8 to $2 million. Our initial cost from the contractor was over $4 million. I don't think it's feasible to build at $4 million. It just doesn't make financial sense.
Jim, quick question.
All right.
Should that building be, we only talked about it briefly, but should it be subject to any type of architectural guidelines for
Talk
that area?
about that a little later on.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to change our minimum standards and bring it back to the board. That's later. I mean,
Okay.
if you go back 2 slides, we've one more, sorry.
Yeah.
We've kind of made this one look like the FBO. I don't think every building needs to look like the FBO, but we want to make sure that as things develop, they're consistent.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good word, consistent, because we don't want to end up with another area of hodgepodge. And that could happen if you don't have the controls on it.
All right, let's go back to my favorite project, the inline baggage system. So this was what we call the first phase of terminal expansion. Next slide. The inline baggage system, the first phase of it will be constructing of a building and a baggage makeup area. TSA will be paying for their cost for the equipment, for the space they use. Airports get the luxury of paying for everything else. It's a very expensive project. It's more than the entire terminal cost us. So we're moving forward cautiously with this, and we'll be going out to bid once the TSA approves the plans, which they have the plans and the specs now, and then we'll be bringing it back. It's PFC eligible, DOT is also involved, Florida DOT, and then TSA. So we'll have the allocable cost breakdown once the TSA finishes their review. We just got an update today. I haven't had a chance to review it.
And James, can you talk us through what the necessity is for this project?
So currently, we can process 150 bags an hour per machine. We have 3 machines. Generally, one is out of service. So when we get the afternoon push is our biggest. It used to be the morning, but now it's the midday. We have 7 or 8 flights leaving within 30 minutes. Each flight's 150 passengers on average. The average through the nation is about 1.5 bags per passenger. And if you do the math, we end up with bags just laying behind the ticket counter. So this automates all that. They throw the bags on there. It goes through a system that processes how many bags per hour? 2,100 bags per hour.
The next slide shows the schematic appointment.
Yeah, so next slide. So this basically shows you how it works. And there's a lot of logic involved in it. There's a lot of computerized, lasers scan the bags, figure out the size, pop oversized bags on one. It can take bags that alarm and flip them back around so we can review them again or dump them onto hand screening tables. It takes all of the manpower out of it. So right now, every bag that goes back into bag screening goes onto a 20-foot belt. It has to be picked up, put on another belt that goes through a very nice machine, but slow. Like I said, 150 bags an hour, and these are 2,100 bags an hour. So we're planning for 2 with the ability to put in a third, planning for 3 with the ability to put in a fourth, planning for 3 and no ability to expand. But I think at that rate,
That's a lot of airplanes.
there's a lot of airplanes.
Yeah. Now,
What is the average lifespan of these machines?
You'd have to ask the TSA. They own the machines, they operate the machines,
And
they
they
maintain the
maintain them.
machines.
Got it.
We just have to build the infrastructure.
Got it.
Now, they call the infrastructure the belts that go to the machines, and that is one of the most expensive parts of this, is conveyor belts and the logic behind it.
now with his expansion, there really isn't, is this a public space up on the top? Or there's no public space in an expansion, addition?
There is, well, yes, there is. So
This piece up here?
So our goal is to convert the existing bag screening area
Okay.
into another gate immediately, as soon as this is built. So that would take us from 7 to 8
8
gates
gates.
right away. And then there is the ability to have more public space, but in the ultimate design, I don't think, that's not gate area, because the gate area is going
It's
to
going to be
out.
moved out, yeah, to the east.
One thing we don't have is any leasable space. Well, we have very limited leasable space in that terminal. The airlines need space. The
Concessionaires.
concessionaires need space. So we want to make sure that we have, it's non-eligible, it can't be, but it can be leased, and the income outlay.
None of the plans that I've seen show the incorporation of the rent-a-car rental counters.
No, they'll stay in
They'll
the
stay all
existing
stay in it.
building and expand
Expand.
into that whole building. We did a large rental car study, and basically, it said, go across the street and build a rental car center, and the rental cars said
Said no.
absolutely not.
The, talking about the rent-a-cars with, are we going to take a hit with the Allegiant Resort coming online? Because supposedly they're going to have a rent-a-car. You know, their model includes, you know, airfare, rent-a-cars, and all that kind of stuff. Are they going to draw away from our revenue source, or we got it covered somehow?
Any car rented by someone who flies into the Punta Gorda Airport
We're gonna
within
get
a
our cut.
10-mile area, we get our.
Yeah, because I didn't see, maybe I read it in the contract, but I didn't realize what that was. So we're protecting our revenue source against off-site rent-a-car operators.
Yeah.
That's good, because that's a huge revenue source for us.
And yes,
Jim, you said a 10-mile radius?
I believe, is it,
It was any car rented by a passenger that flew into a PGD within 48 hours and is rented off airport. The rental car companies have to report that to us. That's a.
And we're gonna have Ray police that?
well, I mean, it's auditable.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, I can.
And, you know, they're not going to lie to us. There's no advantage for them.
That's right,
It's a pass-through on
Yeah.
their,
tickets,
yeah.
yeah.
So. All right, so just some pictures from the backside. You see the terminal expands a little bit. The first section is the inside where the bags are screened, and then they go out overhead onto a slant plate turntable that they can load from all
Both
sides and loop around. The second phase of this would add another one of those outside of this building, and then that would go into the hangar. So that's, you know, once we get there, and that depends on airline growth, that would force another building to be built to house what's currently in that hangar. So the south elevation was what you would see from the hangar, and then the front of the building is a beautiful tan with our logo on it. Is Ray, the little area with our logo, that is dumpster?
That's
generator?
It's a generator and compactor.
Yeah, so,
And it's high enough to cover those from
yeah. So we're not going to have the compactor sitting out with it oozing goo all the time.
Yeah, you're gonna have a goo removal system.
Goo removal system, yeah.
I see Ron's making a note to make sure we get a goo.
Goo removal system.
You want me to spell that for you? You know, people don't understand it, you know, that stuff is messy, and if you don't accommodate it, it's a stinky mess.
Yeah. All right.
The area around where the tugs come in, is that gonna be like a precast slab in there or something? Because, you know.
It'll be poured in place.
Yeah, because those guys have a tendency to go through metal walls and that.
Oh,
stuff.
no, that yeah. A
Lots
lot of bollards, yeah, they'll be bouncing off of them. It amazes me, when we opened up the terminal, I don't think it was 30 minutes until they hit one, so.
Yeah.
Self-serve facility at the Air Center is one of the projects we've been working on, of course, at the Air Center. The board just approved the first part of that, which is getting the slab in place, and we'll get the electrical in place, the water in place, and then we'll move is there another slide? Yeah. You know, then we'll move the self-serve facility itself over there. We have the design done. We bid it. We have pricing on the first phase, and we're working with FP&L on the power options, and then we'll move forward with the rest of it. Any questions on that? And we can go to Golf Course Challenger and the Perimeter Road. So this is, again, projects that are in the ALP. It's all up at the golf course area. If you notice on this drawing, right where Henry Street and Golf Course come together, we were moving Golf Course out to get it out of the RPZ. And that was a very expensive project to really not eliminate the entire problem. So we looked at alternatives and the FAA agreed, so let's go to the next slide. We would just remove that section of golf course instead of relocating it, and then connect Challenger to Piper. So all of the golf course traffic, and I think the subdivisions to the north are going to be thrilled because it would really eliminate through traffic there. If you're on Piper, you're not going to turn and then get onto that. Our maintenance and operations facility will then become part of the air side, and our perimeter road would just come off of Delta and tie into the Henry Street, the old Henry Street access to the T-hangars, and that becomes part of the perimeter road. And the T-hangars then accessed from the air center, which is already in place.
Jim, do you think Challenger Boulevard will be the through street?
I think you would, yeah. If you're coming, well, obviously, if you're a trucker coming from off of Vermont, you're not going to go down Golf Course and have to make multiple turns. You'll just go to Piper.
Right.
And that's been a serious concern.
Well, that's going to eliminate a lot of traffic in that residential area.
Yes, which has been one of my, it's the reason we never advertised the airport at that exit to the interstate. And now that Piper's finished and connected, we have started, you know, some traffic comes that way, but you notice we still haven't asked the DOT to update the signs out there. You know, most of the traffic comes from the south or comes through the south intersection. I think until we can totally eliminate this, because GPS still sends you down Golf Course. So.
Jim, the police department will have a loss of revenue for the school zone speeding.
That is you know, again, getting that truck traffic and even just car traffic off of that road through the school zone, through the subdivisions. We've worked with the sheriff, we worked with the fire department, we've worked with the county, and everybody has concurred that this is the way to go. So that project is currently in design, and
Preliminary plans we need tomorrow.
yeah, so that'll be built. It's 90% funded by the FAA on the perimeter road. Golf Course and Challenger is 50-50 PFC and DOT.
Ron, are we filling the lake at all?
Slightly.
Slightly. Did we have to acquire any property off that guy to the north?
No.
It'd be like floodplain comp, whatever we fill for Challenger, we'll cut out an area on the, west side of the golf course or even north side of Henry. Keep volume to volume.
Is that a stormwater management lake?
Yes.
It is. We have enough of
I
them.
have a question. I'm looking at that perimeter road
Yep.
down there. That gate at Henry Street will be removed.
That'll be removed. That'll become airside.
So then, would it be possible to run that road to the T-hangers up to Challenger?
It would. I just don't want to build on the
Dump.
dump.
Yeah, you don't want to build?
On the dump.
Got it. Okay.
So the perimeter road is really there to get
Fence line.
the fence line inspection and to get our jet trucks from, if they're over at the FBO, to the fuel farm and to the commercial ramp without crossing a runway.
Jim, are we going to be discussing the fuel farm today?
No, because
No.
there's no project on the fuel farm. It's,
Well,
we can discuss it,
yeah,
but
we
it's
can-
not here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
I
get through
got you.
this and then we can go with
Yeah, I
other.
got you.
Okay.
questions. You had mentioned the ALP. When was it 2008 when we approved that ALP?
Yes.
So we're 15 years?
The previous ALP was 2008, the current one was 2016.
Yeah, so 16. We have an ALP project a few years out in our plans. It may be pushed up, and we'll talk about the overall scope of things.
Yeah, I don't know if we need, because with all the projects really being fast-tracked, do we need to update just blah, blah, blah on the 2016?
Well, I
We're
mean,
in 26 for an ALP update.
When?
Master plan.
26, so 3 years.
3
out.
years out.
Yeah, so we need to move it up.
I mean, we are updating the ALP constantly. The master plan, though,
Plan,
is.
yeah.
The maintenance and operations facility is next. Will be next to the sheriff's department. And next slide. As we talked about, it will become accessible through the new perimeter road that we're building, coming off of taxiway Delta. It'll also be accessible by the public coming down Golf Course. We're going to move badging there. We're going to move all the ops staff there and the facility staff, both grounds and building maintenance. Next slide shows the new facility, office space, training space, maintenance bays. If anyone has been in our current maintenance facility, is
Dangerous.
woefully lacking in space, and it is a dangerous building. It's multiple levels. You know, it was acquired by the airport after business moved out after Hurricane Charlie. Our old building was destroyed. Our previous building was changed to another use. So, you know, it's time. The DOT is helping with the construction. We're trying to keep this project under $5 million, which includes the site work, the building, and outside storage.
You're going to use a precast or tilt slab? Because, you know, guys like to drive through those walls.
They will be concrete walls, probably CMUs filled, just because of the size of the building. Tilt-up doesn't lend itself.
Jim, are you going to go flat roofs? I'm not quite sure what you're showing.
It is flat, right? We got rid of the roof.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a slanted roof, but it's not a standard gable.
I got you.
So this will have badging. It will have training rooms for both SIDA training for badging. It'll keep the constant flow of traffic out of the admin lobby. It'll have training for our ops staff, a combined break area, and then parts storage and storage. We have a mezzanine in it. It's one of the things, if you've been around, you open any door at the airport and it's packed with stuff, and keeping track of where it is fun. So this will eliminate a lot of that and give us areas to weld, areas to do woodwork, areas to work on vehicles.
Access is off of Piper, right? How do
So
you
go
get there?
back one. So access will be right off of Golf Course Boulevard. They'll come in. That will be the terminus of Golf Course. You'll turn in here to go to Mooney.
So employees that need to be badged, they'll come in that way then?
Yes.
Good job, Jim, lining up those driveways.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. So this is the vehicle storage area that's across the other building that's there.
Now, this is not another Tin City, is it?
It'll be nicer. It'll be able to withstand a 127-mile-an-hour hurricane. Now, this is an open structure, but designed to current hurricane standards. well, let's be honest, we really did well in the hurricane for stuff that has been built since Charlie. The new codes did really well. So,
Jim, that 127, that's at ground level, right?
which number are you?
The wind.
The wind.
Oh, so yeah, during Hurricane Charlie, the max winds measured here was 127.
At ground level.
It was 86, I think, constant, according to my insurance company.
Yeah, I think the University of Florida's station and our ASOS had whatever sustained is a 30-second gust at 127 miles an hour. All right, next. Terminal seating. So project we've gotten a lot of compliments on. Next slide. There it is.
Wow.
So 100% funded by us, about a little over $500,000. Which puts it about a little over $400 per chair. We could buy recliners for everybody, but
Jim, those poles that we saw in the graphics,
yes.
where are those?
They're
not
not
in
in
that
yet.
picture.
They're back ordered.
Okay.
So right now, everything against the wall, go to the next slide, is there one more? And then everything in the windows, we have stand-up tables that we ordered with charging in them. We have probably already increased the number of charging places available by 200, 300%. But then we will go fivefold that with the new power poles that'll feed multiple chair rows.
What was did we have an increase in the number of seats? Or
It's
is it
exactly the same.
Because, you see a lot of people standing around. We only got so much room.
So if you go to Atlanta, an A320 gate for Delta has 37 seats. We're providing about 100 seats.
Are we going to be able to move these into the new, once we have the,
Yeah.
in the terminal expansion, we'll repurpose them?
These will be here for another 15 years.
You really increase the ability to charge your devices by 300%. How long does it take for that to fill up? Whenever we fly, it's like that is premium space.
Well, I fly between DCA and here a lot, and you get to the gate 2 hours before your flight and every charging station's already full. I mean, that's just the way it is. And, if your terminals wasn't built in the last 5 years, no one thought we'd be charging so many devices. And you see people charging 4 or 5. They got their laptop, their phone, their tablet. I mean, no, we don't charge for that. We'll have the ability to maybe put some advertising on the power poles, which is what they do at DC. I don't know that we will, but
That tends to junk
it
up
does.
the place.
It gets in the way of the view. Our power poles are small, stainless poles that'll, they'll be almost not seen once they're done.
Jim, so can you connect USB to any of the seats?
They're all
They're
USB and 120.
Okay. Where are those plugs at? On the
Well,
chairs?
they're not installed on these yet. If we had a picture of the ones at the left side of that,
Okay,
you would see them. They're between
Box.
2 seats. They're a little
Okay.
box.
nice.
And
So
they're-
they'd be opposite where the gaps are in
Yes.
between the legs? Okay.
All right, any questions on that? New taxiway Gulf. It will connect taxiway Alpha and 22 to the Air Center ramp and taxiway Echo. Next slide. It is an ADG3, which is A320, 737, and down taxiway. Originally in the master plan, it was an ADG2 taxiway. We did upgrade that based on the MRO interest we've had. And the planes that are flying into the air center tend to need a little bit, they're larger, we're getting larger aircraft, so it's a safety issue to get that upgraded.
And what's the weight bearing on that one?
It's standard 80G3.
85,000 or whatever that
I think
number
it's
is.
even higher than that, 95.
I might just ask, does anybody want to take a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom, or want to keep going?
Let's
Okay.
keep going.
And if you need to go
Do
to the
you
bathroom, get up and go.
We better ask our council.
I'm fine.
Are you sure? Just get up and go.
All right, so a little bit, that's a little over, it's $7.5 million total project. It's 90% funded by the FAA, 5% FDOT for construction, and 5% PFC for construction, 10% PFC for the design. We always try, the FDOT's goal is to match all federal grants at 50% of the local share. Sometimes they can't move fast enough, so we'll move forward with the design phase and get them on the construction phase. So CTC, the Technical School Aviation Facility, next slide, that is on the Air Center ramp at the far right of the current ramp to all the way to the east. Next slide. It's both the facility and parking. We are currently out for design. It's we have a $4.5 million grant, well, $4.5 million total project, of which $1.5 million of that is the infrastructure that we already have in place. So we have a $3 million DEO grant. We have been in discussion with the school administration and the tech school administration about costs above and beyond the $3 million, and we're working something out with them, I hope, in the near future. It may drag a little because of the new, the search for a new superintendent. So we're pushing forward with the project because we have some deadlines for this $3 million. Mm-hmm. We're going to build something.
What's the student count?
They're maxed out. I think it was 70 per, and I don't know what they call it, but per group, and they were at
Airframe and power plant.
yeah, and they were running 2 sections, so morning and an evening. It's very well attended, and yeah, I mean it's a great job, and if you're a high school student and you get 95% of your way through it during high school, it's very low cost to you, to the family, to go ahead and finish up your A&P license and then move over to, you know, one of our tenants or at any airport around the nation.
Great. Jim, once again, this is our northern infrastructure.
Yes, yeah, that road that's on the 100-foot where you see the 100.
What's
there.
this? Electric?
That's an old driveway that's just should be faded back more. All right. Any questions on that? Perimeter Road Phase 2. Next slide. It's down to the bottom. Go ahead. So this one, this is out of the master plan. It hasn't been coordinated with the West Side development, so it'll need a little bit of tweaking as we go into design. This is a late 2022 project, and we're just now starting data collection. So we'll make some modifications. The run-up bays was really a Western Michigan desire. I haven't heard a lot of need for it or want for it, so I don't know that those will get constructed, and then that will let that road move to the north. Either way, the road will not interfere with the west side.
You're going to move the road
East
down to the
side of
property line.
airport, yes.
Yeah.
That connects to the east side, where the alligators are. So, it's all Ron. It's all Ron.
The east side of the
No, it's in, we're gonna get preliminary plans in the month or first part of March.
But he's not even paying attention to the misspelled word.
Jim, you had some drainage problems, is that, you can kind of see a little bit of these contours here?
So we have had drainage issues on this side of the airport. The new taxiway hotel goes underwater during anything above like the 10-year storm. With the 422 blast pad and RSA development, we doubled the capacity of the outbound swale by adding some more pipes. There was a single 18 or 24 that took all the water out of that area. So we'll see it this year if that changes. And, you know, we also filled all those wetlands, which takes away a lot of capacity. So this will get us around the runway section, and then the section north-south along our east fence line is where our staff likes to go mudding, and that'll be in the future, getting rid of that. All right. Again, $3 million rough project, total project. 90% funded by the FAA, 10% by PFCs.
Jim, that was not asphalt, right? That was just
That is gravel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
FAA will pay for the gravel.
Yeah.
In some areas, they'll pay pavement, they'll pay for the pavement, tying to the pavement ramp, and then deroot that pavement, and pay for the pavement.
Yeah.
Take a long time for them to approve all this when you send them your proposals.
The DOT, well, that's why we do the master plan. So all of this was included in the long-term or short-term and near-term and short-term, 5-year and 10-year part of our master plan.
So they know.
So these are already approved. And we have the EA for, is this one included in the 5-year?
No, this is intermediate, project 17.
So, yeah, this is outside, so,
And this is pushed up because of the bill funding.
Yeah.
It was a calendar year project.
yeah, just so you know, and, you know, probably the reason we see high inflation and construction costs, the government doubled basically our entitlements annually. We got about $3.5 to $4 million in entitlements, and now with the BIL funding for 5 years, we're getting another $4.5 million a year. So we're pushing projects forward
Yeah, you got the-
so that we can take advantage of the money. We're having to rush CADXs on things and categorical exclusions for projects environmentally, so we can get them funded.
Yeah, historically, you always have to have projects on the shelf ready to go because you never know when the money's going to drop out. Some airports might not take advantage of the funding that they were allocated and the project's not going to go. So if you're ready to roll, you have a good chance of snagging that
And
money.
one of the things that has really hamstrung a lot of the designs is the CADXs are now expiring. And they used to last. And so if you don't do something within the 5-year time frame of the CADX, then you're back, or the FONSI if you had to go all the way for that.
Jim, real quick on the perimeter road, is gravel pervious or impervious? And do you have to get a SWIFT bond permit?
We'll have to get a SWIFT
SWIFT
permit.
permit.
I mean, it's,
Okay.
in my opinion, it is as pervious as the sand, but, you know, in their opinion, it's not.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. This is the replacement hangar for 207. 207 is currently on the north ramp. It is the southern hangar on the north ramp. We'll be moving it into the T-hangar complex on the north side. Next slide. It is now going to be building 611, and we're currently working on moving that project forward with design. We'll be selecting a design build team to work on that soon, or
Now, the 207 guys go in 611, or are they going in the other 60 by 60s?
They are going to temporarily go into the other 60
And
by 60.
then they get moved to the 611s.
Yeah. And then that building will mimic the remaining term of their existing lease.
Is that building 18 and 19, are those the spec buildings?
Which
The
ones?
commercial specs, in the top center, where the arrow's pointing? It says 18.
So 18 and 19 are two potential hangar complexes. So 19 will become building 611, and then we have the ability to build another 6 50 by 50s there. Keep in mind, 17 is a standard T hangar. Building 16 is a 50 by 50 hangar complex. So then we could continue with 15, 14, and 13 in the future if we see a demand. All right. Next project. Self-serve fuel facility at the 200s. We're going to be eliminating the self-serve at the south end of the airport and moving it to the air center. And with that, we saw a need to continue fueling for the people that are in the southern region of the airport, or the middle regions. Next slide. We're going to be putting a skid-mounted tank and payment system. We'll be getting power and water to it, and then getting that in place, putting bollards around it, and painting lines so pilots can come in and come out. It'll be skid mounted so that if we have a need to move it in the future, we disconnect it and move it to a new location.
What is that, 10,000?
Gallons?
Yeah.
Probably do a 2,500 gallon there so it
Small,
doesn't stale.
stale.
And we can pump in and out of it. It'll be a bottom feed. So.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
Jim, just on that slide,
Sure.
we own this building right here in the corner?
No, sir.
Oh, we
That
don't
is-
own that?
No. That is Pulsafeeder's
Yes.
long-term lease on the land.
How much longer do they have? 2 decades?
Who's the youngest person in the room? I think everyone in here will be dead. That is an old lease. It has extensions out forever.
It's a bad place to put it, but you never knew.
I don't
back
think it
then.
was 30 years ago when they
Yeah.
put it there.
Yeah, that's back in the days of the Wright brothers, yeah.
Great tenant, though. I will tell you, great tenant. They're easy to work with, always willing to help out. So,
They're repairing their building?
yes, they are. Currently, if you drive by there, they have ripped the roof off, they've ripped the siding off, and they've got new steel coming.
Just as long as they preserve the flagpole, the Army flagpole.
I have some, yes, it's.
Doubts.
I have some doubts that that's what that was. I've looked at old drawings, and I can't confirm that. But anyway, it is, the base is there.
Don't
Couldn't-
tell Bucky McQueen that.
No, I won't. Next slide. Wetland mitigation, phase 2 of 2. Next slide. So this project's wrapping up. If it's not already wrapped up, is it, they're like final phases?
Yeah, I mean, phase 1 was completed earlier, I just showed
Yeah.
that as information. And phase 2 is complete. We're actually starting to go through the closeout process.
Yeah, we're closing out.
It was included with the runway 422 project for the wetland phase 2.
So phase 2 was the wetlands to the north and to the south of runway 422. Phase 1 was the infield and a wetland at both north and south of 1533. Major bird attractants that we have been dealing with since before I started working here, and we're extremely happy to have those filled in. I don't know if you guys recall, after Hurricane Charlie, that was a wellhead that got damaged right around Wetland C that was blowing probably 40 feet in the air. for months, and it just flooded that area. Finally got that capped, and then let the wetland shrink as much as possible. And now they're gone, and should be a great thing for the flying public and the surrounding areas, because we won't have that bird interaction.
What's
Jim,
the,
that well was artesian?
Oh yeah, all our wells are artesian. We have to cap them. And Mr. Hanson?
I just saw the watershed boundary,
Yeah.
the turquoise line.
There's two small wetlands that are still in the middle of the airfield, wetland L and G. They are mowable. They're not wet most of the year. So right now, we'll just maintain them as a grass surface. And again, that was a $1.3 million, $1.5 million mitigation project, a $2 million construction project, 100%
And that was just
funded.
phase two, right, Jim?
That was just phase
Just
two,
phase two.
100% funded by PFCs. So for every, just so you know what the mitigation cost is, for every wetland we fill in, we get to go buy wetlands somewhere else, and we bought them in a wetland bank that's in our watershed. We actually had to go 2 banks with this one because we're in 2 different watersheds. All right, next slide, runway network improvements. Those are the improvements we're currently making in front of the terminal, in front of the admin offices. Next slide. This phase is a right turn lane on Piper, as well as an additional entrance lane on Viking, and just removal of the 4-way stop, going to a 2-way. We are looking at speeding up at least the section on Viking. It's complete, letting traffic start using that. The other day, I estimate we were backed up to within 200 or 300 feet of the 7-Eleven. So, yeah. So this will get people, no, that was traffic coming into the airport. When that happens, we put somebody at that intersection and just start directing traffic and getting them in. The other problem we were having is we couldn't get them out fast enough, so we're looking at least converting that to a 2-way stop to get them going. There's a little bit more that needs to be done there because of the left turn only confusion. What?
Make people angry
What?
with the constant traffic and being stopped and not getting where they need
Well,
to go.
that's why we're,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
if you'll recall, the original project was both phases. We took the second phase out because it's going to be incorporated in the terminal expansion.
Jim, what's the distance to the convenience store? Would you say 7-Eleven?
Yeah, it's
Miles?
a couple of miles.
Couple of miles.
And we also had a lane blockage that day because of our other construction. It was about as bad as it could be. But midday turns are the worst for traffic. I mean, we have arriving, in the morning we just have arriving passengers coming to the airport. In the afternoons, we have passengers coming to the airport. We have people, meeters and greeters coming to the airport. And it gets very congested. We're looking at a lot of options for putting in an expanded area for cell phone lot to get them out of our parking area. I don't, we're not getting a lot of traction on the convenience store. Although they still say they're very, very interested, they haven't moved forward. So I may go ahead and proceed with the cell phone lot in that area.
Jim, that's right at the corner of Piper and Viking. Viking.
Yes. So
Good, that
I
does
know
away with that
you
argument.
never liked that anyway. All right, unless there's any questions. Just to let you know, that was about a $1.5 million project, 50% funded by FDOT SIS money, and 50% funded by PFCs. Next project is the combinations of the 10 60 by 60s. Next slide. And the T-hanger and the 9-unit. So that's building 606, 607, and 615. I'm not sure how we number things at this airport. It hasn't gotten any better since I've become the CEO, but we're working on it. Currently under construction on all 3 buildings.
Yeah, the pads are being poured, or have been poured.
We are still dealing with some fire issues on 607, which I think we'll get through. But they're underway. 615 is a little behind schedule because they sent us the wrong steel. So we've modified our schedule on that and told everybody. So expensive. This is a $3 million plus project. We're funding it out of our CFCs because it is moving the old 207. So CFCs are fees collected on the rental cars, just for everyone's. The next one is the other hangar. I'm just going to talk through these 3. Go back one slide, I'm sorry. So there's 3 total projects. The next one is the 24 T-hangars, about $3.4 million project total. That's 100% our money. And then the 50 by 50 is a $3.3 million project, 100% our money. All right, next slide.
Just for information, how many folks we got on a hangar wait list now? I heard it's a pretty big number.
It's up there, I think just above 200 now. Yeah.
I think it's about 140.
Okay, for T-hangars and then 60 by 60s. Keep in mind, I think that went way up after Hurricane Irma, or Ian was the last one?
Yeah.
Because Venice lost 40 plus units, Page lost 80.
Well, Page lost 20 or 30 or so,
Yeah.
but they're taking those down, and they're going to be adding
Yeah.
a larger number.
And Naples lost some, so I think that list ballooned because of the demand. All of those airports are currently building. Page has lost 20, building 80. Sarasota lost a few, and they're building a few more. So, and Venice is doubling what they lost. So.
And James, just to confirm, there's not really an ROI on those. This is just something that we build as a benefit to the GA community.
It's the return on investment is past the useful life of the building. That's why you generally wouldn't build them without DOT funding. So we have a request for DOT funding 5-6 years out for the next few buildings. It'll be interesting to see what the demand is as the baby boomers age out of flying. And they are, sorry, sir, but they're the biggest group of flyers.
We ain't dead yet.
I said age out of flying, not age out.
Thank you.
All right, next project is the rehabilitation and reconstruction of 422.
That's done.
That is 422.
Yeah.
A whopping $15.3 million project to completely rebuild the keel section and rehabilitate the edges. New lighting, all new electrical, all new lights. We went with LED high-intensity lights. If you've gone by here at night, it is extremely bright. mainly because our pilot control system wasn't working, but then it was just stuck on high. But very nice to see. Runway was about 23 years old. It was redone in '99, so it was a few years past its prime. We had to do 1533 first, which would have come second, so we could handle commercial traffic on that, moving all the commercial traffic to that during the runway rehab. Now the commercial traffic is split between the two, as it always has been. This grant was funded during the cycle where FAA was doing 100% grants, so it was 100% FAA funded at $15.3 million.
Have the noise complaints shifted, or have they gone down?
So the previous group who complained about 422 are back, and the group that complained about 1533 is
Went
still
away.
complaining.
Oh, so we got both of them now.
So we got both of them. This time of year, the weather tends to have prevailing winds that indicate a 15 or approach, and that is causing the planes to fly there. If you look at previous years, they were there then too. I think when you went from 9% of the aircraft using that runway to 100%, it became more obvious. Now that it's back to 9–10%, there's still concern. So we're working through that.
Well, I haven't complained. They go right over my house.
Oh, they go right over my house on takeoff.
Yeah.
So I have that number on speed dial.
You can go on the website and check it.
Elements of the project, as we said before, complete removal of asphalt and base in the keel section. That is the middle 60 feet of the runway. Keep in mind, this runway, for the most part, was built in 1942, and the base material, which was a very strong lime rock when it was in place originally, and then dug out of the ground and put in here, was put in what I would say haphazardly by the Army Corps. They never intended to have the jets, the traffic that we have, and it has degraded through the years. It was basically a powder when we dug it out. So that's the reason we're doing this on this one. We're also doing it on Taxiway Delta. You just have to take it out and start over. The remaining was a 3-inch mill and a 3-inch overlay. And then we put blast pads at either end. Prior to that, we had a lot of trouble with erosion on the end of the runways from jet blast. The A320, 737 class was a lot better, but the central exhaust coming off the MD-80s was just terrible for erosion. All right, next slide. Taxiway Delta, currently under construction. Very complicated project when it comes to phasing and relocating of aircraft and taxiing. One of the most complex phasing plans that we've ever had to work with. So we're working very closely with the tenants, with the commercial tenants as well as the private tenants. There is going to be a time where the entire 200 series and the north ramp are blocked. We'll work with those people to get their planes relocated onto the ramp if they're going to need them. That's a 7-day, and we're working on noticing on that real. So next slide. So that's basically redevelopment of that taxiway, reconstruction of the entire asphalt and base for the entire taxiway, 50 feet wide, and new edge lighting and signage. That is another $10 million project, 10% PFCs for most of it. Construction is 90% FAA, 5% FDOT, 5% PFC. Any questions on that? Just to, tell you a little bit about the phasing. We're working in small sections, and they finish a section, then that gets reopened. Then we have to move the aircraft closer to the terminal, restripe, and have the aircraft taxiing behind the commercial ramp, and then do another section, move those back, and continue down. It is that intersection of Taxiway Foxtrot that they're going to work through that small intersection in 7 days.
What's the whole time on it? Do you know, project length? I don't
You
know.
say the time frame should be done by July.
This year?
Yes. So construction started in January and substantial completion in July. All right, next project, I think that
927. we
gets
had-
to the end. Yeah, 927 was
Yeah.
kind of an in-house project. It was a change order to one of our contractors doing the runway. It is completed and much smoother. Have you tried it yet? No?
Can't get on the ramp.
So, no. So 927, just for history, was a 5,000-foot runway, 150 feet wide, that connected from the 15 in to 22, 21 at the time. It was significantly damaged by truck traffic during Hurricane Charlie.
Yeah, it was the FEMA stuff.
It was to be closed, so there was no chance of getting any federal funding. So FP&L funded the reconstruction of the 2,600 feet, which is what they used, by 60 feet. We did a small patch and fill and then an overlay, and that was really a 5-year solution that lasted 12, 13 years. Again, every master plan until this one had that runway to be closed. We did a lot of analysis to make sure we could keep it, moving the air center up there, putting in Taxiway Gulf, allowed us to keep the runway operational. It is not eligible for any funding, so any rehab, any work on that has to come through CCAA funds. So we're happy to have it back operational. We're happy to have a taxiway that goes all the way to the ends on both sides, full parallel, which it never had previous to, it never had a full parallel taxiway, even in its previous configuration.
Yeah, and it increases the capacity of 422 and the other one, because the GA guys up in that area, they like using it quickly to get out.
And
You don't have to taxi to East Jesus to get out of here.
to be honest, the winds favor that runway.
Yeah.
An east-west runway is one of the most favorable winds for Florida. So. All right. Any other project-related questions? There is a spreadsheet in your packet that goes through all the finances of each project. It shows CCAA funds in the right-hand side of it. You can go through, just look at them. You know, some of the things that we didn't talk about is because we're not even in planning phases of it, because I've kind of put them on the back burner. In 2023, the spec building, that's $4 million that you can take off of that 9. We just don't see a need because there's no return. I mean, right now, to build something for $400 a square foot and then lease it for $20 a square foot just doesn't make any sense. That project is still in our minds, and as soon as construction prices settle down, I think we'll look at it. But as we go forward, you'll notice that the CCAA funds we're not using a lot, so there is the chance to do some things. You'll see we have in 2026 we have some T hangers that would be 50-50. Again, a long-term parking lot expansion in 2027. That's 50/50 with the DOT. That may need to be moved forward. And Ray's Airport Emergency Safety Complex, which is, it's just on there because Ray talks to the master planners and gets it put on there every time. One day.
Yeah, the spreadsheet, I think, is really important for, authority members to be knowledgeable of. You can see that we're spending a lot of dollars, and where the various funding comes, and we sure don't want to run out of money in the funding all these projects. But it also demonstrates, because of our construction and all the projects we got going on, our contributing to the economic development of Charlotte County.
Oh, it is.
Because you look at these totals, and 23 million, 52 million, 48 million. That's some big. Those are some big numbers.
So if you look at the other pieces of information you had, these were pulled right out of the master plan, and these numbers are estimated dollars. We haven't trued them up with actual, but the short term, 2018 to 2022, we have done almost everything there. What is known as WMU is now CTC, and we're currently working on that. Building 111, we're just kind of on hold on a replacement for that. And like I said, those holding bay areas or run-up areas we haven't built. But that should have taken us to 2022. If you go to the midterm intermediate projects, 2023 to 2027, we have completed 4 of those. And we're currently in process on the majority of the rest. So it has been a lot of work, a lot of staff time. I mean, I can't say enough about our project management staff. Those of you who have been around for a long time know that that was just me previously, and there's no way we could have done this amount of work. It's now Ron and Corey and Paul, and the big guy on the right is Ron 2. He's Brett White. He is replacing Ron as Ron moves off into RV retirement in the near future. So we're trying to make Ron stay around for the next board meeting so we can say goodbye. But if he doesn't, this could be his last meeting. So.
I'm going to miss the
because
big
we don't
check.
have a March. So Brett is stepping into smaller shoes, but he's got a big job to fill. A little bit about Brett, 18 years construction experience, the majority of it here in Southwest Florida and in Charlotte County. He's a Charlotte High grad, so grew up here, went to the University of Florida, so we know he's good. And we're really excited to have him on the team. He's got a lot of construction experience. He's built things at this airport, so he knows us. And we just got to get him trained on the specifics of FAA and FDOT, which is what Ron's goal is over the next 6 weeks.
Okay.
So the next item, unless there's any other specific questions, we added a little bit to the minimum standards. We gave you one sheet, has some highlighted things in yellow. These are some updates we'd like to discuss and then put into our minimum standards. We'd bring them back to the April board meeting to have approved. They would just give us the ability to have some architectural control over development on the airport.
And we will reference whatever we end up approving in the future land leases.
The land leases always reference the minimum standards. That's why we thought this would be the best way to handle it.
Okay.
Everybody that's currently under a lease that's building new buildings has agreed to, a review of their stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah, without any, comments from the board at this meeting or until this is developed and brought back to you, we'll be bringing back something like this with all the spelling and punctuation errors corrected.
Yeah, how much did that cost us?
All morning.
Anything else board members would like to discuss? And Mr. Hurston?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Jim, I have two questions. What is the status of the industrial 80 acres?
The industrial park by Cheney?
The industrial agency had it, our
Oh, the
commission.
IDA,
Yeah,
the IDA land.
Yeah, the IDA land.
So I'd like to buy it. I'd like to
Yeah.
control it. As industrial land, it is very valuable. As it sits right now, it has no access to be industrial land. It is not very valuable.
Right.
It's coming to an agreement on price with the IDA, and you know, they want the same amount of money as you're going to get in the industrial park down here that has sewer, water, electric, roads.
Right.
And I want to pay what I paid for the RPZ land
Yeah.
because it's not accessible.
What does it appraise at? Have we run an appraisal?
We have run our appraisal and they've run our appraisal.
Okay, but
and-
I thought we were going to get some help from one of our
Yeah.
county commissioners. I won't mention Stephen's name, but
we haven't pursued it any further because we were so far off on the numbers.
well, maybe it's time to
Is Derek still involved?
Yes.
Still involved.
maybe it's time to crank it up again and take a look at it. The restaurant in the GA building, where are we on that thing?
It is currently in permitting, from what I understand.
I see they have a sign up.
We put up, we asked the association that built that original sign if we could clean it up. It was falling apart. So we paid to have it repainted, some structural reconstruction, and right now it's just a banner, but we'll be putting up permanent signage for their stuff and our stuff.
One more question, Mr. Chair, and on one of our slides, the stormwater pond, I guess it would be east of I-75 northbound. I think we provided some floodplain compensation there.
Yes, we did.
Do you know what that is currently zoned now with the county?
It is part of ECAP.
It's part of the ECAP, okay. What's the chance of that ever going away, that floodplain compensation?
Since FEMA just increased
Yeah.
the flood area, I doubt it will ever go away. That was a narrow swath of land.
It's nice.
Yeah, but
It's a nice piece of property.
I think we could build around it and get a lot of visual effect from the freeway. I think that's a great, hotel site, motel site for travelers that are on the 6 a.m. flight to come in, spend the night, and hop over there.
Can it be used for stormwater management as part of the development?
That entire pond is stormwater management and has the capacity to take care of all that land already.
Where are we with, was it Mopar, the racetrack?
Motor Brothers?
Mother Brothers.
We met with them yesterday. We hope to have that lease finalized by mid-March and on the April meeting. The Motor Brothers,
Yeah, the number two.
the number two people in the bid.
But one backed out.
We're excited. They're very excited. They have. I guess there's a really large contingent of outdoor racing or motocross fans in California. Apparently, all of them are moving to Florida. There's a big track in Claremont that's closing down because they're building houses on it. So this is a higher end use. They're talking about electric motorcycles that are really coming online, that are going to cut down on the noise. And what did they say? 100 people a day would be used. That's their estimate. Would be using the site.
100 to use it a day.
That's a nice amenity for Charlotte County.
Yeah. And if, the people who have been around a long time remember there was this huge development out Vermont Road, tracks and trails that never really happened. It was built, it spent a lot of money, but it never really came to fruition. So I think a lot of that type of use would be compacted into a site here.
Any other questions by authority members? I'd be willing to just open up for a few minutes if anybody in the audience want to address, the authority or its staff. Any questions? We have Mr. Lyons. You come up. You gotta come up and identify yourself so we know.
Hi, Jim Lyons. I've got several airplanes we keep over on the private side of the airport, plus a couple hangars over here. I see all the plans for the new terminal and the parking areas, but I see we've got 3 helicopter operators now advertising in a new building. There's not one single helipad and helicopter operating area been slated anywhere. And it's a hazard, it's dangerous, and you can't intermix a helicopter parking next to a GA plane. Can cause a lot of damage. And are you guys planning to put one in somewhere? Even Arcadia, Sleepy Little Arcadia, has a dedicated helicopter area to land.
I'll have our planners look at it.
Yeah. Those of you who don't know Mr. Lyons, he's also a airline captain. Still captain?
Yep.
Okay.
3 years, 1 month.
To go.
But that's my concern, and I've had issues when the helicopters used to park here at the old FBO. My airplane got spun around twice. It can create a lot of damage. And,
Yeah, maybe. Like I say, we'll turn it over to the planners, and maybe in the GA area or
somewhere
the ramp.
where you can't park GA airplanes near it. You can't get the prop wash. You
Yeah.
got people walking around could be injured.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I will bring up, since he brought up the private side, we have had an FAA inquiry into that entire area, a very strange inquiry, about 40 questions we need to answer in the next 30 days.
Is this through the fence?
It was anonymously sent to the FAA, so we're not sure where it came from. Talks about people living in there, non-aviation uses in there. So it's going to be interesting to work through that.
That's through the fence.
Through the fence, yes. We just got it last week because they sent it to Jay Duncan. They combined me and Gary, and we never got it. So I was at a meeting in Tallahassee. The ADO chief was there. He asked me when we're going to answer it, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
You'll be, I assume you're going to the Washington conference?
Yes.
Any major, I know what they are, but...
Reauthorization.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big one.
That's the big one.
The FAA it was authorized for 5 years. And then so Congress has to reauthorize the FAA every 5 years. And that becomes a huge political nightmare. Last time it was 4 years, 3 years and every time they give them short-term reauthorizations, so short-term extensions. They were at 23 continuing resolutions last time. And the problem with continuing resolutions, unless they're 6 months, they won't give grants.
Yeah.
So these 3-month continuing resolutions preclude us from getting our grants, which then delays projects, which then forces a bunch of projects at the end.
And then the prices go up.
And the prices go up, and it's just a disaster. So we have been working Washington remotely for the last 2 years. This will be the first time since COVID that we'll be face-to-face with them. And, it's going to be a difficult thing to do with a divided Congress.
Yeah. Well, you've got Pete, Mayor Pete.
Mayor Pete, we're working on a meeting with his deputy. It's it's something we deal with every 5 years. I would love to see a 10-year authorization,
Yeah.
but it's never happened. And
Jim, by the way, I saw some campers over in the Airport Commerce Center, by the way.
yes, so we have leased to the Florida Department of Emergency Management a short-term lease on the land next to the pond on Airport, as well as to FEMA. We've leased land north of Cheney, next to the Cheney Entrance Road south. Those are longer-term leases with FEMA. Those are not to be lived in. This is a storage and transfer site, but they are paying fair market value on short-term leases, and we're
That's
not.
nice.
I mean, unfortunately, we just, during Hurricane Charlie, we gave a lot away, and we just can't do that anymore. The FAA is scrutinizing everything, so.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You see all those housing units on those lots, and they're not moving anywhere.
If you drive down Burnt Store, you'll see
Yeah.
a brand-new RV park that maybe has 200 units in it.
105 they put in there.
105,
Yeah.
and we have probably twice that between
Yeah.
the two lots. No, it's what, four months after the storm, and they're still,
Yeah.
So they're just temporary housing?
they're temporary housing for people who lost theirs. I live in one, but it's on my property, and I bought it, so.
Yeah, and for board members that aren't aware of, you get into this political stuff, the airport authority, we belong to ACINA, which is the Airport Council International North America, which is the organization of airport owners. And then there's AAAE, which is the American Association of Airport Executives, which is the organization of the professional people in airport management. And then we belong to, what's the Florida bunch?
Florida Airports Council.
Yeah, FAC. And all of those agencies and organizations, they kind of work together and try to provide a united front to the various funding agency, which is, FDOT and DOT. So,
Yeah.
and we are represented by in all those.
AAAE and ACI at the beginning of COVID and throughout COVID were very influential in the monies that airports received. So we can't be more pleased with it. Every year our dues go up because it's based on emplanements, and
yeah.
It's a great thing that our emplanements go up, so we don't yell and scream too much about the increase in dues.
Yeah. It's well worth the bucks. So, anything else from anybody? I thought this was a good session. It gives you a feel for what's going on, and when people ask you questions, you've got some history now, and it's very busy out here. I come out here enough to watch it all happen and hear the complaints. And things are going really good. And what I hear in the community, everybody seems to have a positive thinking of what's going on out here. And we're handling a lot of people. And we'll probably hit the 1 million this year. I think we will.
I think it'll be really
employment.
close, yes.
Yeah.
Based on our January numbers, we'll be very close.
Well, with that, we could adjourn, and this way we don't have to buy lunch.
No.
So, and thanks for all coming and the time you're spending. I know, a couple hours, but gave you a good insight, I hope. All right. Yeah. 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 Okay. All right, we'll see you in, what, April?
April.
Unless,
Second week of April.
yeah.
13th of April.
Second Thursday.
Yeah, there's no meeting in March. He's going to be in Washington, I hope. That's where he needs.
I already bought my tickets.
Huh?
Announce adjournment? Yes, you gotta hit that thing.
Adjourned. Make noise.